Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Hex with John Arnold, Armand Kafai, and myself, Daniel Robertson. Don't forget, smash the like button if you could as you're watching. So it would help us so much to continue to grow the show. Let us know in the comments what you think about today's show where we're talking MLS. The first manager has lost his job in MLS this season. We have got Triple C, some great games. Maybe it was a second manager, right?
Right.
And is it realistic to think a young MLS player could get called up to the World Cup roster? We're going to talk about that next. So, guys, it was another busy Saturday of MLS. I know we were all kind of all over the place. I think some of us caught some of the afternoon games. Some of us caught the evening games. So, John, we'll start off with you here. We like to start off every show with our winner of the weekend in MLS when it is a full weekend of games. So, where are you looking for the team that impressed you most this weekend?
I don't know if they impress me most, but my winner of the weekend is Nashville SC because
win a
anytime
lot.
that you have a game where you rotate, where you're not playing your best players, which is the smart move because Nashville did not do enough in their first leg of their CONCACAF Champions Cup series to really feel confident going into the second leg this week with that scoreless draw, although maybe they'll do the same thing that did Inter Miami, get a scoring draw, and they go through on away goals. When you can play players who are not surplus, but part of your depth and still get a result, I think that's big. Now, the one caveat I would say is that a lot of the guys who actually really excelled are guys who are regulars. Edward Tagseth pulled this goal out of absolutely nowhere. I was like, has this guy done this before in MLS? No, this is his first MLS goal, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
I don't know about in other leagues, but like just an absolute world-class, hit. And that scores the opener. Patrick Yazbek had a really good game. Those guys will probably play 90 minutes in the Azteca. I mean, if they've got the lungs. But I think there was good contributions from Warren Madrigal, from Rubens Pacius up top. Some of the reserve defenders did well. So when you can do that, I think it both helps you really believe in your league campaign. Hey, we could win Supporter Shield. We could win, big things here. And also, I think, gives you the confidence heading into that CONCACAF Champions Cup match where you look and you say, Handy didn't have to play he played a little bit less than a half. Espinoza came in late. Basically, the big guns came in late. So the fact that you can get 3 points, I think, really helps with the confidence. And, there's other teams around CONCACAF, namely Tigres, who are going to have that same kind of boost from a weekend result where you just say, man, we got to continue that momentum. We got to carry it through. But I think for Nashville, it should be good vibes as they head to Mexico City, where maybe the vibes wouldn't have been that great if they get 1 point in Charlotte. There was a late penalty. But if you concede again, or, if you lose that first leg, but the fact that they had an okay result followed by a great result, I think gives you confidence that in this really big clash this week, that you feel good. So for that reason, Nashville is my winner.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can really contend for that Supporter Shield because they're going to have Leagues Cup too. They're going to have a lot of games coming up to deal with, but right now, they've got the depth. Armand.
Well, in theory, you'd say you don't want to get knocked out of CCC either, but if you are gunning for the Supporter Shield, maybe that helps you, but obviously you'd much rather be in the Final Four of that competition than not.
Club America is going to have their hands full this week. That's going to be a fascinating one, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Armand, who do you have as your winner this week? Hint, they scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I missed the extra point though, unfortunately.
I saw that people were dogging on the Colorado Buffaloes like spring.
They're all going to Rapids games now.
Yeah, they're all at the Rapids.
That's what's going on now. They're going to Rapids games and Summit games. Yeah. Well, the Rapids are playing at Empower Field next week against Miami.
That'll be a great game.
Maybe we'll see a show because they've been absolutely impressive and they were really impressive for 6-2 victory against the Dynamo. I mean, they basically outclassed the Dynamo in any way. What Matt Wells, we've kind of talked about it on this show a lot, but he's brought in this new kind of energy. Yes, Daniel, you can plant the Cooper flag on there. But he's really staked his claim as this coach who's kind of come in here, kind of like what Eric Ramsey, did with Minnesota United, and kind of brought this new energy to this franchise. And they just look really good, man. They look like a lot of fun to watch. They have a little bit of youth in there. And they've picked off these kind of MLS, I wouldn't say journeymen, but kind of these MLS players like, Josh Atencio they picked off from the Sounders. Manungu, who they also picked off from the Sounders, who had his first assist. And
Feely?
you add Paxton Aronson to the mix. You add Navajo to it. Rob Harrington, their center back, who again we talked about last week, an 18-year-old center back that has been quietly impressive. They've climbed up my standings. We don't have MLS season pass anymore, but they're like high on my MLS season pass list for sure. I mean, it doesn't exist, John. I mean,
you can still watch the games on Apple TV. I think it's still called season pass, is it not?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it is season pass. It's definitely called season pass.
Then they're on my MLS season pass list, and they're in the upper echelon for sure. Because again, they play a way where they want the ball, and they're going to continue to go at you. This is a really interesting thing we've seen, Daniel, with some of these younger coaches saying, "Hey, we're not going to set out to hold results. We're going to continue to just go and go and go forward and push for a second goal or a third goal or a fourth goal." Instead of sitting back and holding off for a result. So for me, I've enjoyed the Rapids, and
I'm skeptical.
Ooh,
wow, why?
I'm not going to make it. The Dynamo and Orlando City are on a record pace for goals conceded this season. Last week, the Colorado Rapids got it wrong and lost to a Toronto team that doesn't look all that good. So it's fine they're the winner of this weekend.
With some really wonky stuff going on there. Zach Steffen decided to.
But they did that. That was their wonky stuff. It wasn't like someone else caused. There wasn't a wrestling move where someone came in and pulled them. I mean, that happened.
But where did I say they were good? I said they're entertaining.
Well, but what if I told you though that the Colorado Rapids after 7 weeks would be tied for the top scores in MLS? That is not something that you would have expected to have happen. You know, it's really interesting too. Is I know they've made Armand. You talked about their moves, and they've made a lot inter MLS moves, picking off some guys. You might know this. Obviously, you probably do know this more than anyone. What their signing, cap space is like, because with an English coach, a guy like Matt Wells. This seems like the exact kind of coach that could go to a player in the Premier League that maybe is ready to move on, is ready to go to an MLS, a Wilfred Zaha type, that he could bring to the Rapids. Like I see them as a team that could sign more players and get even better.
And don't forget their link, obviously, with Arsenal, Stan Kroenke.
Right. I
mean, that's how I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason how Rob Holding ended up in the Rapids.
Maybe it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that up. Well, I'm going to stay in the Western Conference here. Again, this is not maybe the most impressive team of the weekend, but I'm going to go with the LA Galaxy of my winners of the weekend because, damn it, they need some good news. And the Galaxy, I was talking to you about this, Armand, over text a little bit. When you look at the numbers, actually, the Galaxy's expected goal difference is really not bad. Like, the underlying numbers say they should be better than they are, which is not very good. But the Galaxy got a huge win at Austin over the weekend. And that's coming off, John, that Toluca game where I saw you posting on Blue Sky about it. There was some serious CONCACAF After Dark stuff going on in that game. Clearances off of guys. That fourth goal for Toluca, man, it killed it. If they get back to LA at 3-2, again, we'll talk about Triple C in a minute. But yeah, if they get back to LA at 3-2, I don't think they're feeling too bad. 4-2 is tough. They go to Austin, and it doesn't matter how they got it. They get 3 points. And that 3 points, it just keeps them within touching distance of the playoff teams. And when you look at the upcoming Galaxy schedule, next, after Toluca, they go at Dallas, at Columbus, then RSL Vancouver. If they didn't get these 3 points, there was a really good chance of their season kind of spiraling out of control pretty fast. Now, if you're the Galaxy, it's like, okay, we've got 8 games or so left until the until the World Cup break. Let's just try and get 2 wins out of this. Stay within touching distance. They can stay alive, maybe get some signing in the summer. I think it was a huge win for the Galaxy to get those 3 points at Austin FC. So I'm going to give them my winner of the weekend. A team we didn't mention that won their game on Saturday, a winner of the weekend, and maybe the winner of the last month or so in MLS, the Chicago Fire. They beat Atlanta 1-0 on Saturday, their 3rd win in a row. They are 2nd in the Eastern Conference, ahead of Miami, 3 points behind Nashville for the top spot. Armand, Greg Berhalter in his 2nd season in Chicago. He has them playing really well. It's been a great start. Do you think this Fire team is for real?
Is this a real or fake segment?
Sure, yeah, real or fake. Let's go for it.
we gotta be consistent with the branding. Yeah, I think it's fake.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that their schedule has been super soft. If you look at who they've played, and yes, I know they beat Nashville last week, 1-0, but obviously there are some other factors in there with the CCC looking ahead, etc. But they play very Greg Berhalter-y. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Obviously, he's a coach.
That's a good thing in MLS, right?
Obviously, he's a coach, right? But, like, it's very, like, But it's just very okay. Hey, we're gonna like try to control the game, not be like as like super creative in moments. But if we're gonna win, we're gonna win 1-0 and kind of like and call it a day. I think it's I see your face, and I think it's it's sustainable to a point to where you can kind of grind out results in the playoffs, etc. But I don't think this form continues. Honestly, add someone in the summer, maybe like a Lewandowski type or something like that. In there, I think that'd be a pretty big addition if they add someone like that.
Nice.
So maybe
you think that would be a big addition.
That would make them for real. Yes, I think we all agree.
I think that would make them for real. But for right now, it's just okay. Oh, come on, Atlanta. Like, is that what we're gonna have a victory lap on?
But I'm gonna say that they're real, not because I'm doing a victory lap, but you say, oh, okay, well their schedule's been soft because they beat Philly, Nashville, the leaders of the conference, and Atlanta United. Well, next up they've got, after Open Cup, they've got 2 games against Cincy. How do you want to rate them? Between that, they've got Sporting Kansas City. Then Red Bulls, okay. Then DC United, Montreal. Like, there's squishy teams all up and down the Eastern Conference, which is the conference that they play in. So for me, I think they're for real. I agree with you that they're not like some, marvel of soccer beauty, but we're not asking for that. We're asking for a team to get results in MLS, and that's what they're doing. I think that the center back pairing with I can't say his name, the young South African. I'm gonna have to learn that before the World Cup.
Yep.
And Bukazi. Popular player. Him and Elliott, I mean, it's like that on this, and Brady behind them, who's been fantastic, especially for his age. It's like, on this rock I will build my team, right? Like, I guess that sells well in Catholic Chicago. I think that like that base, if they can continue kind of playing as well as they have and being as stingy as they have, I don't see any reason why this can't continue. And I'm also not convinced, while I agree with you that they're not a great watch. Look, it'd be great if you had Lewandowski between Zinkernagel and Bamba, but like, those guys have both created and scored plenty of goals in the past since they've arrived in MLS. So for me, it's like a team that I could see the attack getting a little better. If that defense, of course, stays solid, I don't see any reason why they can't finish, top 4 in the conference.
Well, and we know they have money because the Brian Gutierrez sale, they've got that. And John, I think it's really interesting too. I wanted to ask you about this as someone who's watched a lot of Brian Gutierrez recently, obviously. Like, it seems to me like that move really worked out for both sides very well, because Gutierrez is obviously a great player, but he's inconsistent in sometimes. And you feel like Greg Berhalter wants to, like you said, Armand, that we want to play the same way every game, no matter what, grind it out, be a very, maybe low ceiling but high floor team.
Right.
And Gutierrez is the type of player that he can win you games, but he can drift in and out of games too. And maybe for a Greg Berhalter team, he was not the right fit, whereas obviously going down to Chivas, it's been great for him.
Yeah, and I think like when you look at the national team now, Mexico needs this sort of like shot in the arm energy player, and he's going to do it. There was a story that came out today where Andres Lilini said that Gutierrez had actually turned him down at the youth level, saying he wanted to wait for the U.S. And at some point he made the decision, time to go for Mexico. And like, he's going to play at the World Cup this year. So you say, hey, has it worked out both ways? We'll see kind of what Gutierrez's ceiling ends up being, but like, he's going to be a young kid playing at a World Cup in 2026. It definitely worked out for him. But I do think that like, there are other players that Chicago has still on the roster who are able to do some of what he does. Like you're saying, not in the same style. So maybe that stylistic fit was perfect for him to move, and he had that moment when he went back to Chicago. So, yes, and not just because of his sale do they have money, but because of the ambition that ownership has shown, and the fact that it's a very wealthy person running things.
Yeah, that helps. And I will say real quick, I'm with John. I have them for real. I mean, because not only Greg Berhalter, who raises the floor, and I said too, like in my notes on this, it's kind of a theme. We're seeing the revenge of some of the downtrodden coaches this year, with Bruce Arena having San Jose way near the top of the table. Greg
was
Berhalter,
a year early. Remember last year on the Hex, I was like, one of them's going to finish top 4. Now they're both going to finish top 4.
A year early. And the offseason, the reason also why they're for real is the offseason additions. Mbokazi, who is playing fantastically well, and I don't think people realize what a big star he is in South Africa. Obviously, I work in analytics and see the numbers. The numbers that Chicago gets for their posts are insane. Robin Lod was a great just floor signing. And then Anton Saletros, that Swedish player they signed, he's playing every minute for them in midfield. So I think that there is a floor there that is really good, and I think Chicago has a chance of making some noise. One team that made some noise in the wrong way this just yesterday was CF Montreal, who fired coach Marco Donadel. They lost their home opener, which because of obviously weather and Montreal, they always have their home opener very late in the season, which is not working well for coaches in Montreal. Hey, you're not going to play at home for your first 6 games, but go out there and get some results. Their 4th loss in a row. 6th loss in 7 games, and Marco Donadel, who, if you remember, if Marco Donadel, he came in as an assistant for Laurent Courtois last year. When Courtois got fired, Donadel took the interim role. Did, I guess, okay, and then they let him go, John. 7 games into the season. Do you think that's the right move for Montreal at this point, or what do you think?
Here's the difficult thing, man. Is it the right move? Doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter. The organization hasn't been serious in Montreal, and it's kind of funny in a way, like in a black comedy way, because like I almost feel like if you're a Montreal fan, like the biggest moment of this season has been everyone says nice things about you every time that your coach gets fired. You know, that's kind of the high point of every season. Everyone's like, well, this market should be great. I love visiting Montreal. The soccer culture there is really cool. You look at the players that they've sent to the Canada national team. It's unbelievable. Some of the development, especially when the cold weather plays, like futsal, Mo Farsi, who plays not on the Impact, or pardon me, CF Montreal, but like he developed through futsal and then went to Algeria. And that was how his path went. And you hear all these other paths, guys from the Haitian immigrant community, guys who come up through, Saint-Piet, these more traditional sort of like French Canadian soccer pathways, like all these different ways of sort of viewing the game and seeing the game kind of seem to converge and produce these great players. And yet, what happens at the MLS level? This has been a team that was coached by Thierry Henry. Fine. I mean, obviously the legend of the game, who wanted to live in a place like Montreal. And then they ran off Wilfried Nancy, who's like one of the best coaches we've seen in the last 5-10 years in MLS. So if those guys can't get it done, if they can't stick around because of the decisions that are being made at ownership level and some level of the soccer, director of soccer level, who's going to be able to get it done? Truly, like if you can't do it with Henry and you can't do it with Nancy, or they don't want to do it, maybe better said in the case of Wilfred, what are you doing? And now you have this like pathway of like a lot of those guys go to Columbus, and the Columbus seems to take a lot of advantage of them. I don't know. I just think that, is it the right move now? Is it the wrong move? I don't know that it matters. I would say it's the wrong move because I'm not sure what you're going to ask that guy to do, but I think the fact that we could see that situation coming from the start of the season means there was never a chance, really, for Donadel.
Well, and Armand, if you're an MLS coach, like, why would you even take this job at this point?
I mean, the roster is a disaster. They've picked off like the most strangest players off teams. It's been like, all right, we're gonna like put you guys together and see. Yeah,
a guy
happens.
Like Dante Sealy, they just let him go for nothing.
Waivers. They picked him off waivers, and Dante Sealy's a success story, right? But there's a lot of guys who aren't success stories, or maybe who haven't got those results. Remember when I got Veroni from the Revolution, man, with designated player, and he did absolutely nothing for a year.
I forgot, by the way, that they hired Wilmer Cabrera for like 7 games and then let him go.
Yeah,
but did he have a pretty good record?
Yeah. He only had 1 loss. Like,
it's very strange. That was a strange moment.
It's one of those situations where you wonder what happens in an MLS where we know there's going to be roster rule changes. We know that there might be increased spending. Where does Montreal fall in like this like domino? Again, John talked about it. We think that this market should be better, and we've seen it better for other
great
sports.
French players, like they should be getting the Buongas of the world should be going to Montreal. Right. Like, why are they not just scouting League One?
And instead, they're just. It seems like a low budget operation that it seems like no one cares. But if you look at like Bologna and the Serie A, Daniel, you know better than we do. Like they look like a competent team.
Yeah,
like, they look a much better, well-run organization. And I think this blame has to fall on ownership and the Saputos. I mean, this is a joke of a team that's being run in MLS right now. And it's just one team that's really dragging down. I wouldn't say all of MLS, but at least a little bit of MLS because it should be better. And whatever coach they hire, whatever coach that they bring in, he's going to be left with not that much resources. They probably fired too. I mean, they fired Laurent Courtois early. They fired Donadel, who had to work with the youngest teams in MLS history last year because they were just playing 19, 18-year-olds, etc. Like, what can a coach do with this consistently? You're not going to win games that way. Not in a new age MLS.
Do you remember who their first manager was? Jesse
Jesse
Marsh. Jesse Marsh was their first manager. So they have had Jesse Marsh, Thierry Henry, Wilfred Nancy. Like, those are some pretty good names in there. Yeah.
I mean, there's even good names in the. I mean, like, look, but you're saying like, oh, bring a French player. I mean, they had Drogba, right?
Yeah.
Like, Nacho Piatti,
Marco Di Vaio,
French.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they brought players that have kind of like. I just think that it's a very like MLS maybe 1.0 or 2.0 way of thinking, even with those moves where it's like Piatti, no, like a legitimate MLS great signing legend. Mm-hmm. But like, even though Drogba worked, it's like, oh, we'll just bring in a guy who like will get a couple thousand tickets sold. Yeah, it is like, look, how much of a pat on the back is it at this point? It feels very backhanded to say like the fans in Montreal deserve better because it's a great city. It
and
should be a good soccer market. It just hasn't been, man.
Remember their CONCACAF Champions Cup run?
Yes.
Where I can't remember his first name, but scored that goal. Cameron Porter scored that goal against Pachuca, and in say Lollipop, when he went, I think they played America in the final of at the Big O. Like, but with an owner, like, part of you has to wonder, like, can in MLS figure out a way to push these guys out? They can make so much money off this. Just push. Can MLS push them out and say, hey, we want someone that's like legitimate, like real ownership
History
in this situation.
Watch Who Killed the Astros Who Killed the Expos if you want to get some idea of legitimate ownership in Montreal. It is tough to find, unfortunately. Let's turn to CONCACAF Champions Cup, where we will get the second legs, all 4 games on Tuesday and Wednesday, and all but maybe one of them. I'd say all 4 of them are still a little bit in doubt. We have Toluca 4-2 lead over Galaxy. That's probably the one that is least in question. But LAFC leading Cruz Azul 3-0, going back to Mexico. Nashville and America tied 0-0, and Tigres up 2-0 on Seattle. The question here is, how many MLS teams are going to advance past this round, Armand?
I'm going with 2.
He's going with 2. Ooh, okay.
Yep. And I'm going with LAFC and Nashville. I think LAFC survives. I think it's going to be very close, and we've seen that kind of lead is not safe. We saw FC Cincinnati completely blow that lead against Tigres.
But this is LAFC, not FC.
Right, exactly. That's why put a little more benefit of doubt, but playing Cruz Azul is going to be difficult. So I have them, and I have Nashville. I think Nashville grits and grinds a 1-0 or a 1-1 result because 1-1 gets them through with an away goal, and they advance. But I don't see either the Galaxy. I see the Galaxy maybe making it a little interesting, but because they do have those 2 away goals, which are really, really big. But
they away goal tiebreaker, 4 home goals.
Exactly. And then I'm not confident Seattle Tigres. I think Tigres will hold on to that lead pretty comfortably. But for me, that would, I think, produce an all MLS semifinal and all Liga MX semifinal. Is that correct?
Yes.
So maybe not the most entertaining for neutrals, but I think that's what I think that's what we'll get. Like, I think.
No, it wouldn't. Okay. It would be Toluca, LAFC, and Nashville Tigres, which would also be great. Be good.
Which would be absolutely awesome. But John, what do you think? Do you think 2 MLS teams, or do you think none?
Why would it have to be 2 or none? I'm actually picking 2. I think LAFC holds on without too much stress, believe it or not. Cruz Azul and Puebla. Well, first of all, Cruz Azul, I said last week they're the favorite. They're my number 1 in the power rankings, et cetera, et cetera. And since then, they lost 3-0 to LAFC and drew 1-1 with Club America. That sort of 4-match winless run is now a 6-match winless run, and that does concern me, especially when, again, like the home field advantage in Puebla is just not good compared to like what it is in Mexico City. I think LAFC will be fine. Really good first leg. The other MLS team I think is going to get through. It's not Nashville. I like the possibility of the away leg. It's not the LA Galaxy. It's Seattle. I think that the Sounders can match the 2-0 scoreline, send the series a little longer, and go. I mean, this is a team that they didn't play amazingly in the first leg, and Tigres looked good, coming off not only the 2-0 win over the Sounders, but also 4-1 against Chivas. Juan Bruneta getting into rhythm is bad news for the Sounders and for other teams that are going to play Tigres in the future. It seems like everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet, but that win was that win over Chivas was the first time since February that Tigres had consecutive wins, and they haven't had 3 straight this year. So I just think they've been such a roller coaster team, so up and down. It's a long trip. It's not an easy trip. The Sounders actually back in their home venue. I like what they can do. Obviously, they'll be well rested. So for me, those are the 2 MLS teams that are going to get through.
I'm exactly with you, John, again, because I have the Seattle game circled because there's so many things working in Seattle's favor. Also, the weather, it's going to be cold and rainy. I just looked it up. It's going to be cold and rainy in Seattle, which they are going to know. The only worry I have is that this is the first game they've played on that new pitch, and I hope that doesn't cause issues. It's probably going to go one way or the other. It's either going to help them a bunch or it's going to turn the game on a rainy, cold night into an absolute slop fest that favors Tigres when you already have 2 goals, right? But if they can get that first goal, and they've had comebacks, I feel like, in Champions Cup against Liga MX teams at home in the past, it's going to be a packed crowd. Nashville, I don't know. And by the way, John, we were talking about this a little bit last week. Seattle had a chance to make it 1-1, and if they had made it 1-1, I think that would have been game over for Tigres. They found that second goal on the own goal, and obviously they're still alive. LAFC, and boy, we saw what their ceiling is. It should not be diminished that they beat Cruz Azul 3-0. I think that is an incredible result. You said, I think, the David Martinez coming out party. Boy,
2 incredible goals, man. Oh my goodness.
You do that against Cruz Azul, Club America's asking what your price is. That was really impressive. But I'm going to go same 2 teams that John had. LAFC and Seattle turns it around. I'm cheering on Nashville. Galaxy, I hope we see some goals. I think we could.
You're not cheering them on?
I'm not cheering on the Galaxy. No, I'm going against the Galaxy.
Fande Toluca.
Fande Toluca, two teams, MLS teams go through, and that would again set up the potential for MLS versus Liga MX final again. So we're going to talk in the last 2 segments a little bit more national team, a little bit more World Cup. First off, there's a lot of chatter right now about young players getting called into the national team. There's no more camps, right? It's just the pre-World Cup camp, and then it's go time. There's a lot of chatter around potentially a young MLS player getting called into the U.S. national team. Xavier Gozo is a name we've seen. Actually, some people mentioned Farrington from Dallas potentially somehow getting in there. Don't see that one happening. But Armand, do you think it's realistic that a young MLS player who has, and we see this, right, where there's people talking about Leonard Carl maybe making a case for the German national team right now, the Bayern Munich starlet getting in. We've seen this with players where they have almost no pedigree in the national team. Theo Walcott is another name that comes to mind of like one of those young players that basically just got called in and then he has a World Cup. Do you think it's realistic that could happen for a U.S. national team player, for like a young MLS player?
I wish it would, because it's really valuable experience for these guys to, go to a World Cup, to sit there and learn, etc. But I don't see it because I don't think the U.S.'s depth is that good. If we're talking specifically about the U.S., I don't think their depth is that good when it comes to where they can afford to burn a position on a player that probably isn't going to play or probably maybe doesn't make an impact, etc. Or you don't want to. Like, this isn't like the NBA or like the basketball Olympics where you could take maybe a college player in there, right? Or the potential number 1 overall pick and have him sit on the bench.
Tyrese Halliburton.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He got A+ in the group project without doing anything.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it with the US. I don't see it with Poach. I would love to see maybe Julian Hall on there.
That's another name I was going to. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think they should?
I think they should. Like, again, if you have the depth and the ability to do so, I think you 100% should, because it's a super valuable experience for these guys. And look, it just helps them quite a bit. Like, I remember in my head, like when I was thinking about the 2018 World Cup, the U.S. had qualified. I remember I was telling my friends they should call up Weston in there, even though he wasn't playing as much, etc. Like, or he was playing a lot, but like to get him that experience, to get him that in. And I think it is a good idea, but I just don't see it happening with the U.S. and their depth. I mean, we've seen how much their depth falls off. Like, I think they need to use every single spot on someone that can make an impact or have that ability, or have that ability. And I think expecting a guy maybe like Gozo or Julian Hall to make an impact without having necessary international experience in the World Cup setting, especially, again, in this World Cup, I don't expect teams to like Alex and Tim with US to quote unquote load manage, but it's gonna be to go to the final. You're gonna have one more extra game compared to what, and there's also the heat. There's a lot of elements involved there where I would prefer to have every single roster spot used for a player that could have an impact, John.
Yeah, I don't think it's feasible, partly because I just don't think Pochettino wants to do that. I don't think, I think it's one thing to say like, oh, Theo Walcott or, oh, someone's staring at the Bundesliga, the Premier League, La Liga. As much as I think Pochettino respects MLS, I don't think that he just wants to pluck some kid who's doing well in MLS and say, here we go. I feel like March was the time for experimentation. I know that the US fans didn't really want Pochettino to experiment, but I think he was experimenting in March. You know, how much he'll sort of let on in that or not. I think he was kind of like using that as his last little bit of a, laboratory time. And he tried some things, some worked, a lot didn't, and they move on. The one player, I think I'm correct on this, the one player I could see who doesn't have a cap, who I think might make the roster, is someone I mentioned earlier in the show. That's Chris Brady. I could see him being the third goalkeeper. Okay. But I think when you look at Pochettino, we think he's one and done. Right. We think he's just going to go to the World Cup. And wouldn't you rather have, if you're Pochettino, a guy like, I don't know, Christian Roldan, who I think is on the roster, but, maybe he's a fringe player. You talk about experience. Well, he was there last time and didn't get to play. So how much more is he going to want to contribute to do the right things if he gets that opportunity this time around? I think that could be more valuable than just having a 15-year-old kid be your water boy. Not that's diminishing what it would be, but legitimately, like probably not playing meaningful minutes, right? Because you really don't want to get to that point on your roster. I think that it could be more likely with Mexico because there's a succession plan. Rafa Marquez is currently the assistant coach of Mexico. He's expected to take over as a senior coach after this World Cup and take Mexico to the 2030 World Cup. But even then, I think that like the young players are players who have already been brought in. And that was the point of a lot of these friendlies. And that was the point of a lot of these call-ups. So I don't think it's super realistic, Daniel. Do you want someone in there? Is there someone you're circling?
I think it would be a great idea. I think it would be a really good idea because you mentioned like a Christian Roldan. Are we looking after this World Cup if things go sideways and be like, oh man, Roldan, if we'd only had Roldan in there, we could have done something. I think there is going to be a situation at some point where you are losing with 5 minutes left and you need to throw the kitchen sink and you need as many wild cards as possible. And there's a lot of wild cards on the US roster and no one is going to know what a player like this brings, right? They're going to have limited MLS video. And I think that there's something to be said for a young, now I don't know what he's like in the locker room. I don't know, like, the right personality, but if you have the right young personality coming in, it can bring a little bit extra out of the other guys and they can, and it kind of brings that extra juice. Maybe they make a play that gets other people riled up. It gets a crowd into it. I think it would be a good idea, but again, I don't know if it's realistic either.
I also think it's a lot to be asking of a teenager. I mean, you're asking them to come into a home World Cup game. And
of course, but they're almost too young to know then at that point. It's like what about this? Do you think that it would be a good idea to bring him into the pre-tournament camp potentially?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know. I truly don't know what the regulations are, but like Mexico at the Gold Cup will often bring what they call a sparring team, where they bring like 10 young kid, U20 kids, and then they're traveling with the Mexico national team and they're playing and training, and then they do get that experience of this is what it's like to be in a tournament, and they also have the experience of like, oh my gosh, the center backs get to defend Raul Jimenez, right? Like right. There are these cool moments that sort of make you feel like, oh, this is the progression of the national team. This is what it takes to be a professional. I think that is quite valuable. I don't know what the regulations are for the World Cup. I don't know if it being a home World Cup changes these things. Could you invite all those guys to Irvine? For the camp, like the pre-World Cup camp, maybe so, right? So maybe there is some value there for like a sparring team, as they call it in Mexico, but I don't know what the FIFA regulations are.
I think it's a good idea, Daniel. Like you're saying, like I think you want to get some of that valuable experience, right? But like I think John said it perfectly. Pochettino's one and done. He's gonna try to get all like the win now guys, essentially. Quote unquote.
We're talking about one name though. We're talking about one
Ferrari.
player. We're talking about one player.
Well, who would your one player be?
Like Gozo, because
I'd go
Hall.
Now that Ajimong is hurt, that could make a case. I do agree that potentially with Ajimong out for the World Cup, Hall could be an interesting name as well. It seems like every week we have another story about something going weird with the upcoming World Cup. And the biggest one of the last week or two on Twitter has been about tickets, because there was another ticket window open. Armand, I know you sat in it for hours.
I not sat in it for hours. John did.
Oh, I guess that was John that sat in it for hours. But there's a lot of tickets, and it seems like the way that they're rolling out tickets is very, very crazy, because it is not a case of, matches on sale like a concert, we're going to put all the tickets out there, buy them. It's been a very weird situation with tickets sold, tickets unsold. They added in a front row that's like twice as much. They also changed
categories of tickets.
Changed like categories of tickets. But the prompt for this one that we want to discuss is, with games remaining unsold, which we know there are a lot of games unsold, Armand, do you think this is a big deal? And for fans listening that haven't bought tickets yet, what do you think they should do? Should they wait? Should they not wait? Like, where are we at here? As someone who buys a lot of tickets to stuff, where are we at here on this? It's a weird experience. It's been a very weird experience.
If I was a fan, I would definitely, what I've told people is to be patient. Yeah. Be patient throughout the process. Just wait, because FIFA is doing this whole rollout mechanisms and stuff in a way that to produce like kind of this sense of scarcity.
People are catching on though. Everyone has caught on at this point.
Right. And like it's interesting because like in some games what they've actually done. So we've heard the other side of it where FIFA has made the categories worse. In some games they've actually flipped them, made them better. Mm-hmm. So specifically it's the Bay Area. The Bay Area has kind of not the sexiest matchups like by any means.
They got screwed.
They got screwed completely. And those matchups, I've actually heard a couple stories of people who are category 2 actually being put in category 1 seats because of how less than look. Like it's about patience. And one thing that I keep kind of repeating to people, John, is even in Europe where there was a frenzy in the Euros, right? Soccer, I'd probably say like in the Euros, there's going to be a big demand for even the smaller teams, right? Even the smaller teams, people were able to snag. Now, I know it's a World Cup. It's not going to be like $50 for a ticket or something along those lines, right? Maybe it's a little unrealistic to imagine, but I think there is going to be some games that they're asking for ridiculous prices for. Like, all due respect to Saudi Arabia and Cape Verde, I would like to go to a game. It'd be fun. I'm a soccer sicko. I want to go see it regardless. But that's not going to capture the casual American fan, right?
For $400 a ticket.
For $450 a ticket. That's not going to happen.
You guys say that people are catching on, but I think people are getting fed up. I think that I've talked to a lot of, normies, some, casual soccer fans. One friend at a wedding we were at this weekend took her dad to the World Cup final in 2018. Wow. And she said she's trying to get tickets to this. And she's like, look, I knew how to get him in 2018. It wasn't that hard.
In Russia.
And this has been, we've been jumping through hoops and doing all these different things, and it's been impossible. And she's like, I'm done. And I've heard that story repeated from other people who have like tried to buy tickets. I'm kind of in that boat too. Like you mentioned, I was in the queue trying to get some tickets for my family in Dallas and give my son, my wife, the experience of going to a game. And it's just like, well, you know what? This doesn't seem like it's going to happen because of these different measures that FIFA's taken to try and squeeze every single dollar out of the fan. You understand it's a business. We all know why it's happening, but that doesn't make it feel nicer when it's happening. And I think like you're going to have more people throwing up their hands and saying, you know what, forget it. Or like y'all are saying, being patient and seeing at the last minute on, June 18th, you know what, these popped up on an actual legit resale market. I'm going to do it now. But I do think that it's just left a really, like the politics of the World Cup and all that stuff. But all that aside, just the simple experience of trying to buy a ticket, I think has left a really bad taste in people's mouth. And so, that I do think, look, they're going to make a lot of money on it. And I do think that, I think at the end of the tournament, we're talking about a quote unquote successful World Cup. I think we're talking about full stadiums. I think we're talking about great atmospheres because that is the power of the World Cup. And it's the power of the US. Like the fact that there are diaspora communities that every game, well, like Colombia's out. I was going to say Colombia, but like, and who knows with Iran, but like almost every community has this like diaspora of fans that are going to be at the games because they live in the US and they can't wait to, they've been counting down for 8 years, 10 years since this was announced. I think we'll have a quote unquote successful World Cup. But right now I think people are fed up and just done.
Well, and the other thing is, not that it really matters that much because, I say FIFA's not going to have to sell tickets again, but how long is it until the Women's World Cup is coming back here in about 5 years? But it's not like they have a season ticket holder base that they need to be careful about pissing off, where it's like, oh, well, we can't go discount, like, we sold season tickets. We can't go discount the other tickets now because that'll piss off our season ticket holder base. They're not really in that. And where I'm going with this is, at some point, if you're FIFA, why do you not just go for the easy win? Like, you've tried to get every dollar squeezed out of this rock that you can. You're not going to anymore. People have figured it out. So why not just say, all right, every ticket is going on sale at this point. We're lowering ticket prices. Get the, fan first, whatever BS they want to put out there. Why not just call it finally and say, hey, and you look, if you piss off the people like, well, I paid $500 for this ticket that other people are getting 200. So what? Oh, so I'm never going to a U.S. World Cup again. Like, what do you have? You don't have a season ticket holder base that you have to be careful about pissing off.
I think you're right. And you do mention like, hey, like, oh, the Women's World Cup's come back around. I think it's like, oh, maybe the Club World Cup comes back here. But I think like in a way, FIFA knows they've got a rotation where it's like, oh, Americans are fed up with us. We're going to Morocco, then we're going to Saudi, then we'll go to Brazil, then we'll go to a European country. And by the time they're back in the U.S., everyone's like,
I'm a grandpa.
Our kids are the I know our kids or grandkids are the ones that are buying the tickets. So I definitely agree with you that there's a fan base. And yes, call up Henry Bushnell and tell him, give him the scoop because he's been on top of the ticket stores. Hey, you know what? You're right. We did all this stuff, but here's what we're doing now, and it's going to be fan first. But something tells me that might not be the strategy.
There's some other things that frustrate the World Cup that like. FIFA has done a bad job, I think we can kind of say. I don't think they've done a good job with like tickets and stuff. But there's some stories coming out about some cities, man, where it's just like, come on, like the whole paying $80 to go from like Boston to Foxborough. Like,
all of it. All of it feels brutally capitalistic.
Been bad about this.
It feels brutally capitalistic, and I think that if I don't know the exact term I would use for the Qatar World Cup, but if that was the oil World Cup, this is the capitalist World Cup. And again, am I any less excited about it? No, I think it's going to be amazing. I think everything will work itself out in the end. They will have to the stadiums will be full. It's just a matter of what if they. But it's like, get your win, make a headline. So we'll see what happens. But thanks, you guys, for listening. We'll be back next week with Triple C reaction. We'll see what happens in MLS this next weekend and plenty more. So we'll see you next week.